There is some anti-inflammatory components to the OsteoMove because we know when we're dealing with things like osteoarthritis, it's an itis, which means there's an inflammation happening when you have the breakdown of the joints. So things like boswellia in here, for example, as an anti-inflammatory, but also the nutrients that help to, over time, build up the cartilage, like glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM. The Total Body Collagen is made with bioactive collagen peptides. So these are little protein fragments, little amino acid combinations that are absorbed intact when you take them. And then they will go into circulation, and then the fibroblasts, so these are the cells in the body that make collagen, will see these little fragments and say, oh, look at this, collagen must be breaking down. Look at these little bits and pieces. Let's start making more. And then it will take those amino acids and use that for collagen production.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 156 of the Healthy Habit Podcast here. I'm your host, Dr. Dayan of Healthy Habit Medical Center, located inside Healthy Habit Health Foods here in Central Phoenix at 6029 North 7th Street. And we got our beloved Dr. Kate Rhéaume back with us from Canada, representing Natural Factors here today in our monthly check-in. Dr. Kate's an author, naturopathic doctor, and graduate, former faculty member as well of the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in Ontario, Canada. Dr. Kate lectures internationally on many topics related to health and wellness, and she's a frequent guest on radio and television across North America. Dr. Kate's the author of the best-selling book, Vitamin K2 and the Calcium Paradox, How a Little-Known Vitamin Could Save Your Life. Today we're going to be covering the topic of bone and joint health, and we'll give you some useful strategies, highlight some products that may support in this goal of optimizing the health of your bones and joints. Dr. Kate, welcome back.
Thanks, Dr. Dayan. Good to be back on the show.
Well, I'm excited to have you back because it's always informative, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on our episodes with you. So let's dive right in then. Let's start with the importance of why this topic's even so important of bone health, with the rising rates of osteoporosis, osteopenia, as being revealed, especially above the age of 55, 60 in patients and customers. So tell us about the importance of this.
Well, our bones carry us around all day long. That's a really important job. And a fracture, wherever that may be in the body, is not a good thing. Of course, that can slow us down, lead to recovery, and even more seriously, for a lot of people, a fracture, particularly a hip fracture later in life, can lead to major complications. Many people who experience a hip fracture never live independently again after that injury. Some people can even die of the complications of that. And so this is something that is serious, and it's a quality of life issue.
Good point. Absolutely. That first hip fracture for a lot of elderly is where it's kind of like the downfall is where it begins, right? And it goes from there. It's a slippery slope. It's where a lot of people start presenting to they can't do any more activities of daily living after that, and and then if they can't move, then the brain health starts deteriorating because they're not getting good blood flow throughout the system, and it goes on and on. So good. I'm glad you mentioned that. So what about menopause? This is an important topic. It's a high percentage of the clients and patients that we see here at the clinic and the health food store, that transition, especially through the 50s, but postmenopausal weakening of the bones. So tell us about this. Why does menopause affect bone health so dramatically?
This is a well-known phenomenon, and it's a time when women, hopefully many do, start paying more attention to their bone health, or may get the news that their bone health has declined. And that's when the body stops producing estrogen, which is normal. That is a normal process, but it's the lower amounts of estrogen that can affect bone health in multiple ways. It affects the way the bones are metabolized, sometimes the way we convert or the levels of certain nutrients, for example, how calcium deposited in the bones. So it can really decrease bone density and strength, and there can be a shift that happens around that time. And so it's definitely important to pay and more attention to the bones leading up to, during, and around the time of menopause.
You mentioned estrogen especially is involved in this. Yeah, and there's so many charts you can find online and that we show our patients here that as you transition through those menopause years, literally estrogen, progesterone just plummet, right?
Mhm.
So very, very important. So then from there, besides calcium, what else can consumers take to support bone health? Most people just think calcium, calcium, right? Go ahead.
Very much so. Yeah, that's a thing. And that, oh, for years, the discussion in and around bone health has been almost exclusively about calcium. And if little is good, then more is better. Taking tons of calcium turns out that's not necessarily a great thing. And there are other nutrients that help us get the calcium to where it should go, keep the calcium in check. It's not just bone density, but the structure, what's called the microarchitecture, so how the minerals are deposited in the bone. So, off the bat, one that most people are already aware of, but needs to be mentioned, of course, is vitamin D. Vitamin D helps us absorb the calcium that's coming into the body, and it helps to create and stimulate bone building cells, for example, and the osteoblasts. And so it plays a role there. So vitamin D is important, but I think most people are aware of that and take calcium and vitamin D usually together. But there are other nutrients that are overlooked, like vitamin K2 and magnesium, often are overlooked or underappreciated or not included in people's bone health protocols.
And that was kind of my next question there. That was a good intro to what nutrients and cofactors, meaning not just the nutrients, but you need other cofactors to support overall that the nutrients work better themselves to support bone health, like magnesium, which you just mentioned. So, how does magnesium contribute exactly? What's going on there?
Yeah, it does this in a few ways. First of all, magnesium helps to convert vitamin D to its active form. So you could be taking vitamin D, but if you're deficient in magnesium, you might not be utilizing it completely, or it's not being activated. So that in itself is important to get your vitamin D on board. It also helps and magnesium helps with calcium metabolism, keeping calcium in the bones, in the right places in the bones, and to a certain extent, keeping it in check so it doesn't end up in other places in the body. That overlaps with the role of vitamin K2. But those are two things that magnesium will do, and two reasons why it's important for bone health.
And would you agree that most multivitamins don't have enough magnesium? And maybe you should have one alongside a multivitamin?
Yes, especially for bone health, you just
Right.
can't fit enough into a multi. It's, magnesium is a relatively bulky mineral, and so it takes up a lot of space. You just can't fit enough of it into a multi. A multi is a good idea, but when it comes to bone health, and frankly, our magnesium intake, the average adult needs around 400 milligrams per day just for basic, meeting your basic magnesium intake needs. And that's challenging to get through foods. Not that we shouldn't make an effort, but separate magnesium supplements, a really good idea for most people.
Absolutely. And what's a good starting point then for a magnesium? What's your favorite? There's like 12 different forms. What would you say about that? The bisglycinate, there's oxide, there's all kinds of different magnesiums. How do you view that?
That's it. I do tend to lean towards the magnesium bisglycinate. The two big options I think are either magnesium citrate, that sometimes are referred to as cheap and cheerful. It's inexpensive, usually pretty effective, although for some people it can be tough on digestion. Then there's magnesium bisglycinate, a little bit more expensive, not much, but a little bit more, but always gentle on digestion, good absorbability. People tend to feel well when they take it and get the results that they need from the magnesium bisglycinate.
Yes, and I agree that you said a lot of people are deficient, they don't get enough in the diet. What are some foods? What's a good way to start correcting these in the nutrition to get sufficient magnesium levels?
Green leafy vegetables are the top providers and the most magnesium rich foods. So need to eat 2 cups of cooked green leafies per day to be getting in or meeting or getting close to the recommended daily intake. Nuts and seeds also can be good sources of magnesium. So those would be some top foods for your magnesium intake.
Right, eating the rainbow might be a good starting point to actually help you. And I was talking about this earlier with a previous guest, and I talk about it almost every day with patients, Dr. Kate, that the two most neglected food groups in North America are the fruits and legumes. Uh, every time I ask someone, when's the last time you had beans? They look up to the ceiling.
Yeah,
It's
right.
so bean. Do you agree with that? Legumes. Have you noticed that over your career?
Very much so. I don't know whether it's there are some areas culturally where people have dishes like
Right.
that,
But
but
most,
not it's not widespread, right? And yet they're also a great source of magnesium.
especially when from those other cultures, when they immigrate to North America, they start slowly adopting the Western kind of way of eating, and they
Mhm.
start falling out of the diet. So good. I'm glad we hit on that topic as well. Perfect, folks. And if you're just tuning in, episode 156 here of the Healthy Habit Podcast with Dr. Kate Rhéaume, where we've covered bone health, but we'll see if we can plug in some joint health as well. They kind of work together, and maybe you can hit on that as well. Why is it important to think about both of those at the same time, bones and joints?
Well, they are made of a lot of the same building blocks. So many of the
Okay,
things that can affect our bone health can affect our joint health. There are some differences. When you're talking about joints, there's more cartilage involved, and sometimes cartilage can be deteriorating or breaking down even when you have healthy bones. So there certainly are some differences. We know when it comes to joints, problems with joint health can lead to pain, and that is certainly something that will drive people to either see their doctor or take some kind of steps to address that, which is something that can be done. It's great to know. Cartilage wears down. There are things we can do to help rebuild it or at least protect it and slow the breakdown, but is a slower process, but a lot of the similar building blocks here between bones and joints.
and I'll be doing a quick screen share here, but you can still get us started on my question here. To answer this question, is the OsteoMove, before we get too far away from bone health, the
Mhm.
OsteoMove product by Natural Factors. Give us a little intro on this, and I'll pull it up here for the YouTube viewers.
Yes. So the idea here is to provide some of those building block nutrients that I mentioned that are helpful for joint and cartilage health in particular. There is some anti-inflammatory components to the OsteoMove because we know when we're dealing with things like osteoarthritis, it's an itis, which means there's an inflammation happening when you have the breakdown of the joints. So things like boswellia in here, for example, as an anti-inflammatory, but also the nutrients that help to, over time, build up the cartilage, like glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM. All of these will either slow the deterioration of cartilage or help you build it up. So promoting, comfort and mobility in the joints, right? Like it says on the label. There's
Right.
also hyaluronic acid in the product. Now, this helps to contribute to the cushioning between the joints. So in the joint spaces, there's going to be fluid where you have a cushioning effect.
Yeah.
If that fluid is disappearing, then there's going to be more rubbing and irritation in the joint. So hyaluronic acid, which is in this product here, helps to contribute to that fluid and cushioning in the joint.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, we can go any number of ways from just this label right here. You can see the breakdown in the OsteoMove product, and it has the big three, I call it, all three in there from the glucosamine, the MSM, and the chondroitin together. And as far as I know, Natural Factors also has those as standalones. Is that correct?
They
Or
are,
combo?
you're right. Yep, you're right. They are available as standalones, but I like calling them the
Yeah.
big three. And that suggests that they do work well together, which they do. Studies have shown that they do. They work, you could say, synergistically or in a complementary fashion to provide sulfur-based compounds like you find in MSM, chondroitin sulfate, as well as glucosamine. And those are big building blocks of the cartilage. So those do make a difference in being able to help repair cartilage.
Amazing. So, and then tell us a bit more about the type 2 hydrolyzed collagen in here versus, like, let's say type 1, type 3. There's multiple types of collagen. Why type 2 specifically? What are your thoughts on that?
There's lots of different types of collagen in the body. 90% of the collagen in our body is type 1. We find this in our skin, for example. But in the joints, we do have this type 2 collagen makes up about 9% of the collagen in our body. So that's what's in the OsteoMove combination because it's more specific to the kind of collagen, again, another building block that you'd find in cartilage.
Perfect. Yep, that's good to know there. And then, of course, boron's included. Why boron specifically? is included in here. Why that mineral?
Yeah, again, that's another mineral that acts as a building block. It helps to create, you could say, the scaffolding when it comes to bones and cartilage, and one that has been shown to complement the big three that's in here, as you mentioned, and the other ingredients.
And again, we're not saying, oh, this is going to reverse your osteopenia, osteoporosis, right? How important is it to maybe add this plus weight bearing exercise, physical activity, or maybe hiking uphill?
Absolutely, very much so. There's a few reasons for that because you want to keep the muscles strong. Exercise is ultimately anti-inflammatory, although right after a workout or intense exercise, you can feel more inflammation. But you want to keep joints moving to the extent that you can and safely. If that activity has been cleared, because that is good for joint health.
Amazing, Dr. Kate. Perfect. So now we'll pivot. That was the OsteoMove, extra strength joint care. But this helps with bones and joints, correct? That formula?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're hitting two birds with one stone on that one. I don't even like that analogy, killing two birds with one stone. I don't.
We're coming up with it,
You're
but
covering two bases with one product. There we go.
there you go. Two runs with one.
Right. So tell us more about the degeneration of joints. Why is that happening? What's contributing to the degeneration of joints?
There's a number of things at play. So often it's inflammation that's happening in the body. This in conjunction with possibly a sedentary lifestyle, possibly lack of antioxidants, so a lot of free radical damage. There, on certain joints in particular, like knees, just in terms of gravity and the body carrying extra weight, there's a physical wear and tear process that can happen. And
Right.
unless you're providing the body with protection against the inflammation and the nutrients it needs to maintain the cartilage, then that cartilage can start wearing away. And so we want to address those factors, whether it's the inflammation and having adequate amounts of nutrients, with the right type of activity, not carrying too much weight to address that, breakdown that can happen in the joint.
And then a product like Theracurmin can potentially hit from the inflammation side, correct? Why Theracurmin can potentially be beneficial here?
Definitely. So there is research showing that it has benefits for joint pain due to osteoarthritis. So specifically, the joint pain that we find in conjunction with that type of inflammation that we see in the joints. The studies often revolve around knees because those are easiest to study, but this can affect other joints as well. And so this is, we know that curcumin is a wonderful natural anti-inflammatory, working on a number of different levels to deal with inflammation. But the key is absorption. So the small particle size of Theracurmin leads to the higher absorption, which then really leads to the results that you want.
Perfect. Yep. Thanks for clarifying that. And I'm a big fan of collagen supplementation. I think people aren't getting that naturally in their foods, and it's almost necessary to supplement with collagen or things like bone broth or gelatin, beef gelatin, making gummy bears the old school way, like with organic. We can go deep on that. But why is a collagen supplement important? Why is that a heavy hitter? Or why is that something that someone might want to consider, like the Total Body Collagen?
Very much so. So when we talk about bone health in particular, we spend almost all of our time talking about the minerals in the bones without talking about what's holding the minerals there. And although our bones seem very, hard, in fact, they are in large part made up of collagen. So that is this matrix, this protein matrix that holds the minerals in. When we send minerals to the bones, that's what holds it in. Because collagen tends to decline with age, absolutely, 1% per year, beginning as early as the third decade of life, that can mean this matrix is shrinking. So the bone matrix where the minerals are supposed to go is shrinking, then where are your minerals going to go? And this is a really important and I think often overlooked aspect of bone health is the collagen matrix that makes up the bones.
Absolutely. So let's dive specifically then into the Total Body Collagen. Is this going to be that we covered in the OsteoMove? You have the type 2 collagen in there. So tell us about the type of collagen in this product and why someone might want to consider Total Body Collagen over another collagen product out there.
There's a few reasons. So the Total Body Collagen is made with bioactive collagen peptides. So these are little protein fragments, little amino acid combinations that are absorbed intact when you take them. And then they will go into circulation, and then the fibroblasts, so these are the cells in the body that make collagen, will see these little fragments and say, oh, look at this, collagen must be breaking down. Look at these little bits and pieces. Let's start making more. And then it will take those amino acids and use that for collagen production. So the type of collagen in the Total Body Collagen is type 1, because as I mentioned earlier, that's 90% of the collagen in the body is type 1. You find this throughout your skin. It does play a role in bone and joint health as well. And it's one around which there are studies for skin, wrinkles, cellulite, things like that, as well as bone and joint health. There are other ingredients in the Total Body Collagen that help complement the action there, like vitamin C, like tryptophan, very important. And these will help get the body to and support the body in its ability to make more collagen.
Okay, so that would be an example of a cofactor that you need to make collagen naturally in the body is vitamin C, you mentioned?
Vitamin C, yes, it is a rate limiting factor in our production of collagen. So if you, for example, you notice somebody who's ever been under stress for a while and then they look stressed,
Wow.
that's because when the body is under stress, its first most important use of vitamin C is all for stress hormone production. So that will be shunted towards your adrenaline or cortisol production. And if there's none left for your collagen, you're going to look stressed or you're going to get sick because the body didn't have enough vitamin C for all that. So topping up on vitamin C, especially when you're under stress, make sure you have enough for collagen production, immune health, and everything else you need it for.
Right. So a lot of people, when they hear vitamin C, they just think immune system support, right? And it's so much more in-depth involved in human health than just the immune system, like skin. It strengthens those joints. It's even involved in bone health as a cofactor. And do you want to hit on that a little bit too?
Yeah, literally just before I got on the show, I was reviewing a study about how vitamin C has been shown to accelerate bone healing. So post-fracture, people who supplement with vitamin C seem to heal faster than those who don't. There's a lot of other research about the role of vitamin C in bone health. But again, it's because of its effect on collagen and helping to maintain and upkeep the collagen.
Amazing, Dr. Kate. Perfect. And yeah, we've highlighted 3 products here in this segment here with Dr. Kate, from the OsteoMove product to the Theracurmin, for literally clinical studies showing the effectiveness of Theracurmin in mitigating the stress in joints, degradation, and all the inflammation involved in that process. And then that Total Body Collagen, which I've gone through a couple bottles of myself, given that to patients and customers in the store. And how do they use the Total Body Collagen? Just in water, coffee, smoothie, empty stomach? Does it matter?
No, you can do any of those. I know some people are still fans of putting it in their coffee. That's fine. It's very easy. Well, there's an unflavored powder. There are a couple of flavored powders.
Okay.
And that can be mixed into just water. Mixes a little bit better with slightly warm water. Or if you're putting it into a smoothie, for example, you can take it on an empty stomach or with food. Some people take it at bedtime. It's very flexible.
And you said there's vitamin C in that formula.
There's vitamin C already in that formula,
okay.
as well as other nutrients that act synergistically with the collagen peptides.
But similar to a multivitamin, you might want a stack of vitamin C with it, like in the lack of magnesium with a multivitamin, if you're really trying to target the skin, correct?
Or if you're going through a stressful period,
Right.
or if people around you are starting to get sick, if there's any reason why you might need more vitamin C than on an average day.
Don't just rely on what's in that Total Body Collagen formula. Maybe you might want to add it on the side with it. There's some really great powders out there as well. Natural Factors has a variety of ascorbic acid options. So great. We can take this any number of ways in this interview. So we'll finish off on, what would you say is the most overlooked aspect when it comes to bone and joint health, Dr. Kate?
Well, we haven't mentioned exercise, but especially weight-bearing exercise.
Yeah.
That's one that definitely deserves being mentioned. Earlier, we're talking about estrogen. Testosterone is also important for bone density. So that's another discussion. Men do get low bone density too. Probably, I think it comes back to that collagen piece of the puzzle that people often aren't thinking about. They're so focused on minerals and less focused on what's holding the minerals there. So that probably comes back to that in terms of being most overlooked, maybe the collagen. We barely even touched on vitamin K2,
Right.
which is an
Yep.
important one that I think more people are aware of
No,
now.
you wrote a book on it. Absolutely. It's absolutely one episode. We just need to cover that topic, just vitamin K2 and the calcium paradox. So, what would you leave our listeners with then, Dr. Kate, as a good summary on bone and joint health? Millions, tens of millions of North American uh, customers and patients are dealing with bone and joint issues. What's a
Mhm.
good take home here?
That there are things that you can do that will make a difference, both in a relatively short term in terms of helping with, joint comfort and mobility, if that's what is the issue for you, as well as thinking about long-term joint and bone protection, with the nutrients that we've been talking about.
Yeah, couldn't agree anymore. We covered a lot of good bases here, so I'm sure this is going to be benefiting a lot of listeners. And where can people find more about yourself or the company, or how can they stay in the loop and get further information?
People can reach me at www.drkateND for naturopathicdoctor.com or find out more about products at www.naturalfactors.com.
I'll be sharing that below this video in the description box. Thank you, Dr. Kate, as always. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dr. Dan. Great to see you. Bye for now.